Chapter 41. Understanding Runes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. SimpleMTL Editor. SimpleMTL. Learning runes would help the other party enter a learning state quickly. In such a state, the learning speed would be very fast. But it was far from enough. It was like a student encountering a difficult problem. No matter how hard he thought, he could not figure it out. At this time, no matter how good his learning ability was, it would be useless. Only after his comprehension ability had been improved could he overcome the difficult problem in front of him and continue to learn. Therefore, not only did he need to learn runes, but he also needed to comprehend runes. Luff softly said, "Comprehend." The purple rune shadow instantly condensed. Comprehension meaning. Understand, awaken. After silently thinking for a while, the comprehension rune condensed in Luff's mind. The appearance of this comprehension rune had a direct effect. It didn't need to be used passively, but could be activated on its own initiative. Luff felt that his consciousness had become clearer, and he understood many things that he hadn't understood before. His thoughts moved at a rapid speed, and he maintained a very clear state of mind at all times. Impressive. Luff sighed. Comprehending the rune seemed to have raised his intelligence to an unimaginable level. There were almost no problems that could trouble him. He only needed a glance to see through the essence of things. With the help of comprehending runes, Luff also understood that there were still many flaws in his assassination of Berg. If he were to assassinate Berg again, it would definitely be faster and more perfect. Moreover, there was not only one assassination plan, but there were many ways to successfully assassinate Berg and successfully escape. At the same time, his understanding of the use of other runes had also improved a lot. Previously, his understanding of the use of runes had been too shallow. He had only known how to use runes in one direction. It was as though he was a primitive man. He held a stone in his hand and could only use it to smash wild beasts. He did not know how to use it to grind tools and weapons. However, at this moment, his understanding of runes had improved a lot. It was still very limited, after all, he had not received any systematic training in runes. However, his strength was much stronger than before. In the past, using runes had required a process of thinking. Now, using runes had already reached an instinctive state. An ordinary person would need a very long time to reach this state. The problem was not only that one needed to understand the runic ability in the heart, but more importantly, it required a long time of training. And Luff had only taken half an hour. One could imagine how great the benefits of comprehension could be. This is comprehension. What a wonderful state. Luff sighed softly. At this moment, the horizon had already lit up. Unknowingly, another night had passed. The dawn is so fast. Thinking about it carefully, he had spent most of last night teaching Claire runes. Just to let her understand the profound meaning of runes and try all kinds of methods took a lot of time. By the time it was over, it was already late at night. Then, he condensed and comprehended runes and experienced the power of runes. In the blink of an eye, the sky had turned dark. He had never thought that teaching someone to learn runes would be such a time-consuming and stamina-consuming thing. Luff muttered, "Oh Claire, you've taken so much of my time. If you don't become a world-famous big shot in the future, you'll disappoint me too much." Standing outside, Luff chuckled. He was finally leaving this damned place. His mood instantly improved. Young master, don't sell Claire. Claire will definitely work hard." Her voice came from the next room. Luff gently opened the door and saw Claire curled up under the blanket like an injured little beast. She kept talking in her sleep. "Don't hit my master." "No, 1,000 gold coins. Master bought me with 1,000 gold coins. What master said must be right. The salary is the most handsome in the world. You must work hard to take care of master." Hearing her dream talk, Yane could not help but laugh. It seemed that he had not treated her well for nothing. She was still thinking about him in her dream. Claire's mood fluctuated greatly. Yesterday's experience had been a great change for her. It would be normal for her to have some thoughts during the day and some dreams at night. Luff covered her with the quilt that had slipped off her body and walked out quietly. After eating a little the next morning, they began to buy the things they needed on the road. The streets were still chaotic in the capital of Simon Empire. How are we gonna get through this without some emergency supplies? Luckily, Luff had a lot of room. He bought meat, vegetables, rice, noodles, seasoning, even the pots and pans. He had never felt safe since the transition, and had bought enough supplies for him and Claire to eat for months. Moreover, the runic space was a vacuum environment. No matter how long things were in there, the food would not spoil. Along the way, Luff also bought some books. Some were prepared for Claire, and some were prepared for himself. Although the bookseller only had one basic knowledge book, which was not of much use to him, he would have to do something on such a long journey. Reading books could at least pass some time. After that, he bought some clothes for Claire to change into. After all this, the sun had already risen high in the sky, and it was another sunny day. After buying everything, Luff sighed helplessly, "Sigh, who would be a young master like me? It's too long. I have to quickly train Claire. I'll let her do all these messy chores in the future." Chapter 42. Elizabeth, you are listening at NovelFull.audio. Back at the Dawn Inn. Rexton, Lorca, and Vivian were already waiting for him outside the inn. Each of them had 7 or 8 servants with 5 or 6 carriages behind them. Seeing this scene, Vivian lampooned weakly, "Those who know are also going to the Illumination Empire for the assessment. Those who don't know will think that these people are going to move." However, even though she lampooned, she could understand. Not everyone could have a portable space. There was nothing they could do about the daily necessities that had to be pulled by carriages. "Young Master Knight, we're waiting for you." Rexton had already told everyone about Luff's new name. Lorca looked at Luff and smiled, "If you trigger it in the morning, you might be able to reach the divine site by night. Sorry to keep you waiting." After chatting with them for a while, Luff went back to her room to look for Claire. Claire quickly ran out after opening the door. A happy smile appeared on her face. There were still wet tears in her big eyes. Luff looked at the tears at the corner of her eyes. He patted her head and handed her the breakfast in his hand. "Hurry up and eat. We'll be going out soon." "Yes, young master." Claire smiled as she held the breakfast. Her gaze did not leave Luff for even a moment. After she had woken up and he realized that the young master had actually disappeared, she immediately panicked. She was like a thin man who could not see his master. Everything was so fearful. She thought that the young master did not want her anymore. Only when she knew that Luff had returned, did she completely relax. The young master told her to eat plenty. As for where she would go on this long trip, it did not matter. Anyway, she would go wherever her salary went. Luff did not have many things in the room to begin with. He just needed to tidy up a little. He looked at Claire, who was looking at him. Luff chuckled and said, "Why are you still crying? Do you think that I don't want you anymore? Wouldn't it be a loss if I don't want you? I spent 10,000 gold coins to buy you." They lowered their heads and ate together, not daring to speak. At that time, she was new and panicked when she hadn't seen young master. How could she have thought of this? "Young master, I was wrong." Claire whispered. "Yes. It's good that you know your mistake." Luff said casually, "The journey is a long one. You'll have to work hard. I'm still waiting for you to take care of me." "Young master, I will work hard," Claire answered seriously. After eating, Claire went downstairs and saw that the carriage he had bought yesterday was already parked outside. The young lady at the front desk was drawing something. When she saw Luff come down, she held the thing in her hand and said with a smile, "Young Master Knight, take care." "Thank you." Looking at her, Claire said with a smile, "Aren't you also going to the Shizhao Empire with your master? When are you leaving?" "In the next few days. My lady is still in secluded meditation, and she'll leave after she comes out." She smiled and said, "I wonder if I'll be able to see young master again when we reach." "I think so." They exchanged some pleasantries before Luff and Claire walked out of the Dawn Inn. Claire was stunned by what she saw as she looked at the endless carriages. Rexton walked over and said in a low voice, "Knight, I knew that you hadn't prepared anything, so I've already prepared all of the daily necessities for you." "Thank you, Rexton." "Hey, you're still treating us like strangers." Lorca, Vivian, and the others came over to exchange a few pleasantries. Rexton waved his hand. "Let's go." The carriage pulled onto the street, attracting the attention of many people. Everyone knew that their destination was the Illumination Empire. It was just that they did not know how many people would be able to enter the Rune Academy this year. Outside the Dawn Inn, the young lady looked at the sight for a while before reluctantly returning to the front desk. She held a pen and paper and kept drawing. It was a portrait. The outline of the figure on it became clearer and clearer. It was Luff. "What are you drawing?" Shortly, a familiar voice sounded from outside the door. She looked up and smiled. "Miss Camia, you're here." "Brittany, is Elizabeth still in seclusion?" Camia walked in and asked with a smile. When she had returned home yesterday, she had not expected to hear the Queen's shrill scream in the afternoon. She did not know what had happened. But she knew that the Queen's mood at the moment was terrible, so it was very likely that she would be blamed. She could not delay any longer. After dealing with the matters at home, she went to the Dawn Inn to see if Elizabeth had come out of seclusion. Then, they could go to the Illumination Empire together. "Not yet," Brittany smiled and said, "but it will only be for 2 days. Since Miss is going to participate in the Rune School assessment, she won't miss it." When she thought about how she could leave the Simon Empire in 2 days, she was very happy. She had stayed in this lousy place long enough and was extremely bored. Unfortunately, young Master Knight had already left. She had originally wanted him to go along with them. When Camia heard her words, she smiled and said, "Elizabeth will participate in the assessment early. Remember to inform me when she comes out of seclusion." Elizabeth, the #1 goddess of the Dawn Empire. Not only was Elizabeth outstanding in looks and beauty, but her cultivation talent was also extremely terrifying. Moreover, her personality and Camia's were very compatible. After a while, the two of them had become good sisters who spoke about everything. After coming to the Simon Empire this time, other than Camia, Elizabeth did not meet anyone else. The outside world did not know much about her, but Camia knew how amazing Elizabeth's talent was. A single walking rune had allowed her to successfully traverse the 9 great empires at a young age. She had even gone to the heavenly battlefield several times. Her cultivation had even reached the level of a 3-star rune master. She had condensed more than 10 high-grade runes. However, such a genius was only 15 years old this year, and there were still 3 years before the minimum age limit for the Rune Academy. It was hard to imagine how terrifying Elizabeth would be with her talent. Then, even the geniuses in the academy wouldn't be able to compare to her. Chapter 43. The person in the painting is actually that B*****. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL, and this year, she's only 15 years old. How monstrous is her talent? If she were to take the assessment when she turns 18. The beauty rankings and the genius rankings, no one would be able to compete with her. But if she were to take the assessment in front of the court, the commotion that would be caused would definitely not be laughed at. If she was in the same era as Ike, then she would be the only existence that could compete with her on the genius rankings and the beauty rankings. Don't worry, Miss Kamiya. I'll inform you personally when the time comes, Brittany smiled and said. The Miss did not have many friends to begin with. Kamiya was the one who had the best relationship with her. Kamiya nodded and looked at the picture on the counter. She smiled and said, when I came in just now, I saw what you were drawing. Can I take a look? Sure. Brittany handed the painting over. Kamiya was stunned. The person in the painting. Was that B** starred? Brittany knew this B** starred. How did she know this B** starred? Kamiya realized that her emotions were a little temporal. She took a deep breath to calm himself down and said in a casual tone, the painting is pretty good. Brittany, your painting skills are pretty good. Who is the person in the painting? Young Master Knight. Brittany smiled and said, when young Master Knight first came to the hotel, many people thought of him as the 13th prince of the Shizhou Empire. At that time, I thought so too. I only found out yesterday that he came from the battlefield of the heavens. So that B** starred's name is Young Master Knight. What a strange name. And he came from the battlefield of the heavens. No wonder his strength is so terrifying and abnormal. He's staying at the Dawn Inn. Kamiya's voice was trembling. He was staying here. Should she go and see him? But what name should she use to see him? After all, they had separated yesterday. They had been so resolute and said that they would not disturb each other. She also thought that she absolutely did not want to have any more interactions with him. At this moment, her heart was in a mess. Yes, he's been staying at the Dawn Inn for the past few days. Brittany sighed softly, but he left this morning, I'm afraid. Left this the morning. Kamiya's heart suddenly sank. She had thought it through during the night. If she saw him again, she would open her heart and chat with him. She wanted to let him know that there was a reason for her original appearance. It was because of the love runes that she had no choice but to maintain that cold appearance. She was only waiting for one person, and that person was him. As she was feeling a little flustered, Brittany continued, originally I had thought that when Miss comes out of seclusion, I would be able to go to the Illumination Empire with young Master Knight. But has already gone. What a pity. Wait, he went to the Illumination Empire. Kamiya's originally somewhat gloomy mood suddenly became cheerful and joyful. The change in her mood made her love runes flicker non-stop. At this moment, she could not control her mood at all. She really liked the feeling of joy at this moment. There was only one thought in her heart. She would be able to see that B** starred when she went to the Illumination Empire. If he suddenly appeared in front of her and gave her a scare, it would definitely be fun. Although Kamiya was extremely intelligent, she was still a young girl. The type of girls who fell in love were all the same. The change in her state of mind made her smile. I'm serious. Master Knight is the first person I've seen in all these years with impeccable temperament, demeanor, and looks. Brittany cupped her chin and said softly, Kamiya, you know about the Miss. Sigh, I'm so worried. I feel that Master Knight and our young lady are quite compatible. What does that mean? You want your young lady to snatch my man. Not only do you not understand him, but you don't understand your young lady. Kamiya said softly, for such matters, I think it's better to let fate take its course. Don't act recklessly. If your young lady hears about it, she will definitely be very unhappy. Alright, the main reason was. She did not want other women to think about her man, even if they were good sisters. Just as she finished speaking, a clear voice sounded, I am indeed unhappy. Then, from the direction of the cultivation room, a girl of about 15 or 16 years old walked over. She was wearing light green clothes. There was no makeup on her face, but she was astonishingly beautiful. She was like an angel. In 2 or 3 years, it was hard to imagine how beautiful she would be. This girl was really Brittany's Miss Elizabeth. Miss, you've come out of seclusion. Brittany smiled and ran over. Elizabeth smiled and said, Brittany, you're very brave. You actually dared to arrange a man for me. Brittany stuck out her tongue. Elizabeth looked at Camia, walked over and hugged her. She smiled and said, Camia still smells good. What's so good about smelly men? Camia's body stiffened. It meant nothing when she had been hugged by Elizabeth in the past. But now, it felt strange. She pinched Elizabeth's face and said with a smile, since you've come out of seclusion, let's set off for the Illumination Empire tomorrow. That's all right. Elizabeth nodded with a smile. On the other side, Luff and the rest of the convoy advanced slowly. They arrived at a place that even Luff was shocked by. He looked at the ruins outside and his heart trembled. These are the divine ruins. The so-called divine ruins in the rune world referred to the ruins left behind by the ancient gods. Chapter 44. A replay of civilization. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Luff was almost completely stunned. His eyes widened as he looked at the ruins of the gods around him in disbelief. What kind of ancient gods' ruins were they? They were clearly the ruins of a large city in the era of technology. Luff saw collapsed glass buildings and all kinds of concrete and steel buildings. Inside the carriage, he was shocked. In his subconscious mind, he had always thought that this was another world. He had never thought that this would be Earth. After leaving the Simon Empire and seeing such a situation, his thoughts immediately pulled back to that era. If the English of the rune masters in this world could be considered a coincidence, then the ruins of these modern cities showed many problems. Runes were the words of the ancient gods in this world. Perhaps for the rune era, the era of technology that Luff came from was the ancient era. At the same time, Luff also remembered some information about this world. The education system of this world was similar to the era of technology. There were primary schools, junior high schools, but universities became rune schools. This title came from the era of technology. These signs indicated that this was very likely the Earth. However, it was no longer Luff's era, but Earth many years later. In his mind, he couldn't help but think of a sci-fi movie he had once seen, Time Travel to the Future. He could also be considered to have traveled to the future, right? It was just that unlike the content of the movie, he had woken up and was already in the future. However, in the movie, because the Earth's population was too large and resources were insufficient, causing a series of social problems, in order to solve the problem of resources, a scientist developed a time travel machine. The protagonist then traveled to the future with the time travel machine. The future was already different from the past. Not only did it not have the dazzling technological civilization that the protagonist imagined, but it went back to the primitive early human society. There was no civilization there. Even if there was no technological civilization, there would not be a systematic civilization in the future. However, a different culture was born. Some humans had powerful spiritual power and could use spiritual power to interfere with reality. These people who possessed strong spiritual power were treated as gods and worshipped by humans. Although the content of the movie and the rune world were very different, they had one thing in common. When the technological civilization was highly developed, it did not take a step further to form an interstellar civilization and cross the galaxy. Instead, at the peak of the civilization, the human desire also reached its peak and a great war broke out. In the end, due to the battle formation, the human race, for a time, civilization had regressed to the era of primitive society. However, in the movie, it was still in the early stages of the birth of civilization. Meanwhile, the rune world had already produced a systematic and powerful civilization, the rune civilization. When he thought of this, Luff, who had come from the era of technological civilization, felt an inexplicable sadness in his heart. Although he was not in that era, he still had family and friends that he cared about in that era. Unfortunately, thousands of years had passed between them. Moreover, he had never expected that the incomparably great technological civilization would actually become extinct. "Young master, are you all right?" Claire looked at Luff with a somewhat sad expression and came to his side to look at him with concern. "I'm fine." Luff smiled and patted her little head. "I'm just thinking about the past." As he said that, he was still thinking about things. In the past, even in an era where technology was extremely advanced, there were many things that could not be explained with technology. For example, Atlantis at the bottom of the sea. It was said that the people living in Atlantis were all demigods and had a highly developed civilization, everyone had a long lifespan and a strong body. But for some unknown reason, they had disappeared from the mainland overnight. There were also the tombs of the first emperor of Qin in China, the pyramids in Egypt, the Mayan civilization in America, the Bermuda Triangle, and many other unexplainable phenomena. At that time, the gods that humans believed in were, the gods in the West, the Buddha in the East, Odin, the father of the gods in Northern Europe, Zeus, the lord of the gods in Greece. At that time, there were also records of gods on earth, but no one had seen them with their own eyes. If it had been in the past, Luff might have thought that these were all imaginary illusions, but now he could accept such an idea. The once technological world was treated as an ancient civilization, and the humans who mastered the power of technology were treated as ancient gods by the Rune world. This proved that before the technological civilization, industrial civilization, and feudal civilization, there should have been even greater civilizations. It was just that this civilization had also developed to the peak, and in the end, it had died out for unknown reasons. It was just like the technological civilization had gone into decline due to the problem of resources. Moreover, Earth had a history of several billion years. Perhaps there was more than one such massive civilization, and perhaps there were many such civilizations, but they all died out one by one in the long river of history. Civilizations continued to perish, but they also continued to be reborn, as if they were in a cycle of reincarnation. The current Rune era was the beginning of a new civilization, and this was a replay of another civilization. Why did this happen? Why did different civilizations end up dying? Could it be that there was some great secret? He didn't know, but his heart was already filled with fear. Was the destruction of these civilizations a natural development, or was there a mysterious force controlling it from behind? If the second reason was the case, how terrifying and powerful would the owner of the power be? Fix yourself on the spot. A voice came from outside, pulling Luff back from his thoughts. Chapter 45. I want to eat something else. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. All the carriages stopped, causing Luff to pause his thoughts. What nonsense are you thinking? Maybe this isn't Earth, but a parallel world similar to Earth. The idea of a civilization reenacting this is too big. Luff shook his head and laughed. He was really thinking too much. Right now, he still did not know much about the Rune world, so it was not too late to think about these questions later. Rexton's voice came from outside the carriage. Luff, come down and rest. Eat something. Okay. Luff replied. Hearing the young master agree, Claire hurriedly got down from the carriage. Then, she tiptoed and pulled the chain. She said in a low voice, "Young master, it's dark. Be careful. Little smart ass." Luff smiled and rubbed her hair. His mood was much better. No matter what this world was like, it was more important to improve his own strength now. Without strength, it was useless to think too much. Strength was the foundation of standing in this world. Everything else was illusory. The torches outside formed a dragon. It looked magnificent. Rexton said softly, "Knight, there's only a few dozen miles of God's ruins. There are no hotels here. Tomorrow, after passing the God's ruins, we will arrive at Starry City. The road after that will be much easier to walk." Arn nodded and asked casually, how much do you know about the gods' ruins? Not much, but Lorca does know a little about this place. Why, Knight, are you interested in the gods' ruins? Rexton asked curiously while shouting at Lorca, Lorca, come over. I'm a little interested. Luff nodded. What's wrong? Lorca heard that Luff wanted to know more about the gods' ruins and said with a smile, this is the city where the ancient gods lived. I really don't know how the ancient gods built such tall buildings. There are countless of them. Even high-level rune masters are unable to reproduce such buildings. There are many unexplainable materials. Every country has such ruins. Legend has it that before the 9 great empires were established, the sages obtained all kinds of ancient runes from these ruins. Legend has it that they were able to find an ancient item from the divine ruins back then. However, it has long since been plundered by others. Now, only on the celestial battlefield is it still possible to find an ancient item. When Lorca started talking about the things that interested him, he felt a little restless. Legend has it that somewhere in the celestial battlefield, there is an ancient language. According to speculation, it should be the runes of another god. However, it is extremely obscure and mysterious. Every stroke is as difficult to decipher as some kind of mark. At first, people were very excited, but later, they discovered that these runes are completely different from the existing runes. These runes are difficult to recognize, learn, and even more difficult to decipher. In the past few thousand years, only a few rune masters have managed to learn a few of them. However, these runes are extremely powerful. Any rune master who is able to master them possesses formidable battle prowess. Previously, one of the 12 sages managed to master a portion of these runes. His battle prowess is unparalleled, and he is ranked first among the 12 sages. Luff, you are from the heavenly battlefield. You should have heard of this before, right? Every stroke seemed to be some kind of rune. Could it be Chinese? In Luffa's era, Chinese was known as the most difficult language to learn. Not only was its structure complicated, but the same language also had many different sounds and meanings. It was extremely difficult to learn. However, Chinese had a magical charm, especially the ancient Chinese calligraphy. It was like a painting, with an indescribable beauty. Even though Luff did not know much about Chinese, it did not stop him from admiring it. Luff smiled and replied, I've heard of it. What are you guys talking about? Hurry up and eat something. We still have to hurry. Just as Luff and the others were talking, Vivian walked over with a smile. Okay, let's eat something now. Luff walked over and took a look. It was all dried bread and jerky. Then, he drank some water. Lorca said softly, there's no firewood here. No one brought much. It'll be fine once we reach Star City. That's right, Rexton said while eating the meat, there'll be no lack of wood and no lack of people. We'll be able to eat a warm meal when we get there. As he said that, he looked at Luff, who had not made any movements, and asked in a different tone, aren't you hungry? I'm hungry, Luff smiled and said, but I want to eat something else. After saying that, he took out pots and pans, grains, oil, and rice noodles, as well as fresh meat and ingredients. Rexton and the others stood rooted to the ground, incomparably shocked. Luff actually had a portable space. One had to know that the runes in a portable space were high-grade runes, extremely rare. Those who were able to comprehend portable space runes were all genius-grade rune masters without exception. They knew that Luff had come from the heavenly battlefield, so he definitely had outstanding talent. But they had never thought that he would be so good he had even condensed the runes in his personal space. Although the runes in his personal space couldn't be used in battle, they were more precious than ordinary battle runes. Because he could carry many things with him, it was very convenient for him to travel. Moreover, his personal space could store secret items, so he didn't have to worry about people spying on him. Chapter 46. the portable space actually contains all this. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Luffy's actions stunned Rexton and the others. After a while, they regained their senses and looked at him with even more respect. However, when they accepted that he had the portable space, they did not know whether to laugh or cry. Luffy had actually used the portable space to bring food and drinks. This was too willful. How high was the quality of life he required? In their understanding, the portable space created by an ordinary rune master wouldn't be very large. At most, it would be a few square meters. Normally, they would place some precious things or gold coins inside. Luffy had actually placed some daily necessities in a limited portable space. This was simply beyond their expectations. They simply couldn't imagine that Luffy's personal space was incomparably vast. It was comparable to several palaces put together. Knight, you actually used your personal space to all this. Rexton's face was filled with confusion. This is a rune space. It's not even enough to carry precious things. Yet, you actually used it to carry pots and pans. Was this something that a person shouldn't do? Young Master Knight, you really have high standards for food. Vivian's face was filled with emotion. She had seen many people who had high standards for life. But this was the first time she had seen a person like Luffy. Using a rune space to store food. If there was some demon beast's meat, then it would still be fine. Luffy had actually stored pots and pans, as well as the food. These things together might not even cost a single gold coin. For something that didn't even cost a single gold coin, they took up so much rune space. Just thinking about it made one break down. Willful, too willful. He completely didn't understand young Master Knight's thoughts. Knight. I don't admire many people, you're definitely one of them. Lorca's face was filled with emotion. To be able to use rune space to store these things, you're definitely the first of the 9 nations. No. You're definitely the first of the human race. Ordinary people are definitely not as willful and carefree as you. If it was an ordinary person, Lorca would definitely think that person was an idiot. However, this person was Knight. He was different. Although he had never fought with him before, Lorca's intuition told him that if he really fought with Knight, he would very likely be beaten up. The last time he had such a feeling was from that evildoer Zoran of the Illumination Empire. How could such a person be a fool? It could only be said that he was an extraordinary person who did extraordinary things. Hearing their words, Luffy said casually, "It's mainly Claire. She's still growing. Since I've bought her here, I can't let her starve. I still have to wait for her to grow up and take care of me. Don't worry, young master. I'll definitely take good care of you when I grow up," Claire said with a serious expression. Luffy's words made Lorca, Rexton, and the others look at Claire differently. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. This girl really had the luck of 8 lifetimes to meet a good master like Knight. Knight was also true to his word. Servants were like goods. Was it worth paying so much attention to them? Although they couldn't understand, they felt that Knight had a special charm and was very attractive. The other servants looked at Claire with envy and jealousy. Claire didn't care about their eyes at all. She had seen this kind of eyes many times yesterday. She whispered to Luffy, "Young master, what should we do if we don't have firewood?" The others were stunned when they heard. That's right, there's no wood. Lorca came to a realization. Not only is there no wood here, there's not even a ripple of water. The terrain of the divine ruins is complicated. Once you get lost, it's very difficult to walk out. You can only follow a fixed path. There's no way to find wood and water. When they said this, the way they looked at Luffy became a little strange. Knight, don't tell me that you brought wood and water. Did you? When they heard this, they were about to heave a sigh of relief. Then they heard Luffy laugh. Who said that you can't cook without wood and water? Claire. Here. Luff looked at her and said casually, watch and learn carefully. Once you have learnt these things, you will be the one to do it from now on. Okay, young master. Claire nodded seriously. The others looked at Luff with their mouths agape. How could you live without wood? However, the next second, the scene that appeared before them turned their world upside down. Luff waved his hand and slowly condensed a large water ball in the air, which then turned into a few small water balls. The grains, rice noodles, ingredients, and meat automatically appeared in the air and were cleaned by the water balls. Then, they were cut by an ice blade formed by a water ball. A large fireball appeared in his hand and kept heating up at the bottom of the pot. F***ck. Lorca felt like he was going crazy. How could there be someone in this world who could do this? He had seen water control and fire control before. But the prerequisite was that there was water and fire around him. Luff had created water and fire out of thin air. This was a method that only mid.to high.level rune.masters could have. Once this kind of person made a move, Lorca felt that he might die immediately. Luff would have all sorts of methods to kill him in an instant. Was this a monster that had walked out of the heavenly battlefield? This was too exaggerated. Compared to Night, Lorca felt that those from the Shizhao Empire who had come out of the heavenly battlefield were simply trash. Of course, they were trash amongst trash. Luff's methods made Lorca feel that Zoran was only second to him. Chapter 47. Magical Food. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. To be together with such a person. It was both a kind of luck and a kind of misfortune. Fortunately, he was able to witness the beginning of a brand new era, the birth of a genius and monster. Unfortunately, his brilliance was too dazzling. Everyone else became his foil. He could clearly see the shock and doubt in Rexton's eyes. He could see the ardent adoration in Vivian's eyes. He could also see the dullness and disbelief in the eyes of the others. The entire place was dead silent. Only Luff was cooking while he taught Claire. These are called noodles. You can't add too much water or they'll turn into a paste. But you can't add too little or it won't take shape. It's noodle soup. This noodle soup. I understand, master. It's a pity I don't know how to make that big water ball and the big fireball. Claire looked very serious. Luff said casually, you can learn this slowly in the future. You just need to learn how to cook first. Young master, I feel like I've learned it. After hearing her words, Luff could not help but laugh. This reminded him of when he had just learned how to cook. Basically, he knew how to cook with his eyes, but in actual practice, it was a miserable sight to behold. The so-called learning, in fact, was useless. Don't talk big. Wait until you can really make it. I'll wait for that day. Before everything had to be done carefully in order to assassinate Berg. His nerves had always been in a tense state. Now that he had left the imperial capital, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He could relax and do what he wanted to do. Don't worry, young master. I can learn things very quickly. Claire felt that she had really learned. Luff smiled. Looking at the complicated expressions of Lorca and the others, he said with a smile, what are you all standing there for? Hurry up and eat the noodles. Otherwise, they won't taste good if they're burnt. Hearing Luff's words, they all hurried over without a worry. Following that, the sound of slurping resounded throughout the god's ruins. No rush, there's plenty of noodles to go round. After stopping Luff's words, Rexton asked curiously as he ate the noodles in large mouthfuls, these are called noodles. That's right, what do you think of them? Delicious. Rexton nodded frantically. Noodles were Chinese food. Luff had always liked Chinese food and had also studied it for a period of time. There was a big pot of noodle soup and quite a lot of mixed noodles. Cooking for more than a dozen people, they finished them all in a short while. Even the noodle soup had been drunk clean. All of them looked happy. Even Claire had eaten 3 big bowls of mixed noodles. Rexton smiled and said, "It's my first time eating noodles. I didn't expect anyone to be able to make such a delicious thing with flour." "Me too, me too." The others nodded in agreement. They looked satisfied and knowledgeable. Luff could not help but laugh. They were just noodles. But it had to be said, there were really too few kinds of food in this world. A single noodle could make these nobles feel so surprised, but seeing that everyone liked them so much, Luff was very happy. Then, Lorca took out a black iron block and threw it over. "This is for you." "Lorca, what are you doing?" Luff took it, looked at it, and smiled. "I'm not a blacksmith. I don't know how to forge. If you want to make weapons, you should think of a way in the Shizhao Empire." As he spoke, he threw the iron block back. He knew that Lorca wanted to give this thing to him. The one in his rune space was as big as a table. This fist-sized piece was completely useless to him. "This is for you," Lorca smiled and said, "you can't be an idiot with your noodles, right? Thank you so much for letting me eat such delicious food in the world. I don't know if I'll be able to pass the assessment on this trip to the Shizhao Empire, so this piece of boundary iron is for you. If I can help you create a divine weapon and participate in the assessment, I might be able to get first place." The others looked at Lorca with complicated expressions. This guy was really willing to give it up. This was the boundary iron. It was only produced near the spatial cracks in the heavenly battlefield. The production of boundary iron was extremely low, especially since it was almost extinct. The boundary iron could be engraved with runes, and in places like the heavenly battlefield, where treasures were everywhere, it was still considered a very rare treasure. The reason was very simple. As long as a little boundary was added to the weapon, it would become incomparably sharp and tough. Moreover, it could transmit the power of runes very well. On the heavenly battlefield, it could very well kill any powerful foreign creatures. Lorca could be considered a relatively important noble in the Simon Empire, but he only had this small piece. Who would have thought that he would actually bring it here? With the importance of the boundary iron, even if one had money, it would still be very difficult to buy it. One had to say, Lorca's boldness was really not ordinary. It seemed that he had set his sights on Knight and intended to follow him. What a pity. They had also seen Knight's evilness, but it was a pity that they did not have these treasures. Otherwise, they would have shown their goodwill towards him. Hearing Lorca's words, Luff smiled helplessly and said, "Lorca, can't you give me something from the 9 kingdoms? I don't lack things on the battlefield of the heavens. I have many of these things. If you give me these things, you might as well give me a few books to read." Luff was not joking. There were 2 big pieces of boundary iron in his portable space. One was from Charles's vault and was as big as a chair. The other was from Berg's vault, or to be precise, it was the Queen's private vault, which was even bigger. It was as big as a table. Chapter 48. Crystal of Civilization. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Therefore, he really didn't lack boundary iron. No one knew what to say. They all had blank expressions. The things that they had treated as treasures were nothing special to Knight. In fact, they weren't even as important as a few books. They were shocked, but they could understand. After all, Knight had come from the heavenly battlefield. Furthermore, his temperament and talents were obviously not that of an ordinary person. Since that was the case, how could he lack the boundary iron that could be used to make weapons? To him, everything in the 9 nations was new. What he needed was the things outside the heavenly battlefield, not the things that they thought were precious. In different environments, in different positions, the things they valued were different. Understanding Luffy's needs would make things much easier. Books. I have a lot. I brought some too. Hearing that Luffy wanted to read, all of them quickly ordered their servants to bring the books in their carriages over. They piled them in front of Luffy like a small hill. Luffy smiled and said, that's right. These books are much better than those metal lumps. These were the things he really needed. He urgently needed to understand more information about the rune world. The runes in this world had developed for thousands of years. There must be something unique about them. Although he had the help of the system, the convenience of using runes really required him to constantly study and ponder. Therefore, these books that recorded the information about runes were much more important to him than some treasures. After robbing 3 vaults, he did not lack treasures and cultivation resources. Claire. Come with me and move these books into the carriage. Claire nodded, carrying a few books as she walked towards the carriage. Vivian said to her servants, "What are you guys looking at? Quickly come over and help." The others also instructed their servants. In a short while, the books were all moved into the carriage. Fortunately, the carriage was big enough. It was 5 to 6 square meters, and the books didn't take up much space. After eating noodles and giving books, they became much closer to each other. When they were traveling at night, they didn't get into the carriage. Instead, they walked at the back and chatted as they walked. Even Vivian, who used to be very quiet, became more talkative. She knew that Luffy liked to listen to things about the 9 nations, so she specifically talked about these things. She spoke with assurance. Legend has it that before the establishment of the 9 empires, at the place where the spatial rift was born, foreign creatures invaded the rune world and wreaked havoc everywhere. It was also at this time that 12 purple crystals appeared. These 12 purple crystals all had extraordinary abilities. At that time, 12 humans obtained the crystals. It was they who used the abilities given by the purple crystals to rebuild the human civilization. The 12 purple crystals were later known as civilization crystals. The 12 humans who owned civilization crystals were the 12 ancient sages. The 12 sages established 12 large tribes to resist the invasion of the alien creatures. However, after the death of the 12 sages, these tribes were too scattered. Each tribe had a different philosophy. When the humans and the alien creatures stopped fighting, they began to have conflicts and started a war to take each other's land. This eventually formed the pattern of the 9 empires. However, the war was so intense that it lasted for more than 100 years. Every tribal leader who later took control of the crystal civilization wanted their tribe to become the most powerful tribe in the runic world, so they started a war in an attempt to conquer other tribes. However, the strength of each tribe was almost the same, which led to the war lasting for more than 100 years. Finally, thousands of years ago, the embryonic form of the 9 great empires was formed. Therefore, although the 9 great empires seemed peaceful, in fact, there was a kind of estrangement. This was the contradiction left behind by history. This contradiction made some of the 9 empires stronger, while the weaker ones became weaker. Among the 9 great empires, the Simon Empire was the weakest. Young Master Knight, can you imagine the number of talents in the Simon Empire was not even as many as in the Shi Zhao Empire? For 3 consecutive years, not a single person in the Simon Empire was able to pass the Runic Academy's assessment. The policies of each country were different, and their development was different. This caused the human race to fall into an extremely awkward situation. Even in the heavenly battlefield, although each country jointly withstood the dangers from outer space, they still acted independently and guarded different regions. She sighed softly at the end of her sentence, her voice was a little sorrowful. Young Master Knight, when you arrive at the Shi Zhao Empire, you will realize that the Simon Empire and the Shi Zhao Empire are like barbaric countries. The Simon Empire is still adhering to the city-state system, and the nobles are incomparably arrogant. They do not treat the commoners as humans at all, and the commoners live in misery and suffering. As for the Simon Empire, there is no hope left. Who can save the Simon Empire? Her words directly pointed out the problems of the Simon Empire and left them in front of everyone. Regardless of whether it was Lorca or Rexton, at this moment, there was only silence. They did not know what to say, nor did they know what to do. I've already decided. Vivian said softly, this time, after going to the Illumination Empire, I won't go back. Even if I have to be an ordinary person there, I don't want to be a noble in the Simon Empire. I don't see any hope for that country anymore. Chapter 49. Lurking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Hearing Vivian's words, Luff sighed in his heart. How desperate was the Simon Empire for her to say such a thing. The Simon Empire had already rotted away from its roots. There was no way to save this country. The Wilson family had been loyal to the Simon Empire for hundreds of years. What had they ended up with? The royal family had always wanted to weaken or even eliminate the Wilson family. The only genius in the Simon Empire, Camia, was forced to marry a prince who had done all sorts of bad things. This was also the royal family's way of restricting the Wilson family. If Earl Wilson had not been seriously injured, the Simon Empire would have been in chaos. The king of the Simon Empire was incompetent, while the Demon Queen had left the Simon Empire with no medicine to cure it. In the entire empire, apart from a few nobles, all of them lived luxuriously, exploiting and abusing the commoners. The most typical example was the group of people led by Berg. The commoners could not even maintain their basic survival, and their lives could not be guaranteed. Such an empire was not something that could be changed by killing a queen. There was only one way to change the situation, and that was to cut off the Simon Empire from its roots, build a new country from the ruins, and reform everything from the system to the economy. Of course, Luff would not say this because there was no need. When there was no power to change everything, it was useless to say anything. What Luff was most concerned about now was the civilization crystal. He had one right now. He had found it in Charles's vault. At that time, he had planned to check the relevant information in the library, but unfortunately, he had not found any records of the civilization crystal. He had not expected Vivian and the others to know about this, but halfway through her conversation, she had changed to the heavy topic of the Simon Empire. Under such an atmosphere, it was not appropriate for him to continue asking. It's getting late. Why don't you rest now? Rexton could not hold on any longer. It was not really late. It was just that Vivian's words were so shocking. All right. Luff nodded. Rexton left first. After Vivian had finished speaking, she fell completely silent. Lorca did not immediately return to his carriage. After a long silence, he said softly, I don't know who can save the Simon Empire. I also don't know how to change these things. I just want to become stronger. Only by becoming stronger will there be a chance. Perhaps when the person who can save the people appears, I can also help do something. This was a completely different concept from Vivian's. One was that she couldn't see any hope and wanted to escape. The other was that although he couldn't see any hope, he still hadn't given up and was waiting for the person who could bring him hope. No one wrong. It was just that they stood at different angles. Young Master Knight, what do you think? Vivian asked softly. Luff's voice was calm. He said casually, I can stand and watch, I can sit and watch, I can laugh and watch, I can curse and watch. In short, I can watch however I want. After all, what does the Simon Empire have to do with me? I don't understand the affairs of the country, but I've heard this saying before, when you are weak, the world laughs at you, once you become fierce, you will realize that the world treats you with incomparable gentleness. Based on my observations of the Simon Empire over the past few days, the citizens of the Simon Empire are too good-tempered. No matter how others oppress them, they never respond and never think of resisting. Luff's attitude was already very clear. Lorca and Vivian stopped, speechless. They had been taught since a young age that the king was the only master of the Simon Empire, and the royal family was their master. They wanted to unconditionally support the royal family and the king. They wanted to change the Simon Empire, but they had never thought of overthrowing the royal family of the Simon Empire. As he walked slowly, Luff suddenly frowned. He stopped and looked at the servants in the carriage. He found violent fluctuations of runes among the servants. Waves of information were transmitted through the runes. Luff's figure flashed, and then he grabbed a servant from the crowd. This person is transmitting information. Luff looked at her with a cold gaze. Who are you sending a message to? Mississippi Miss, I didn't. After this female slave had been caught by Luff, she looked flustered as she watched Vivian kowtow and explain. Since she was Vivian's maid, Luff didn't speak anymore. Instead, he quietly looked at Vivian with a cold expression. She frowned and looked at him. Is it useful to deny it? Do you think young Master Knight or I believe you? Or does he have no reason to frame a slave like you? Tell me, who are you sending the message to? Her tone became colder. I really didn't. She tried her best to deny it. Luff said casually, I'll do it. The powerful spiritual power pierced into the servant's mind like a needle, causing her to let out a scream. Luff used his spiritual power to hypnotize her and asked casually, what's your name? I don't have a name. My code name is 10. She said subconsciously. Vivian's face suddenly changed and her eyes were filled with coldness. The meaning of these words was very obvious. The maid actually did not have a name but only a code name. This proved that this maid had been trained by others to lurk by her side. Chapter 50. Despicable Aristocrats. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Although Vivian was very angry, she did not show it. She wanted to see how many secrets this female slave had hidden from her. How old are you? 16. After asking 2 questions, Vivian changed the topic. Who is your master? The Queen. Hearing this answer, Lorca and Vivian's eyes were filled with shock. Are you sending her a message again? Yes. What message? The slave girl unconsciously said, I've already sent what the lady said just now. At this moment, Lorca and Vivian only had one thought in their hearts, it's over. Once the Queen knew, she would definitely send people to hunt them down. Even when they arrived at Star City, she would still send soldiers or killers to hunt them down. These weren't the good .4 nothings that patrolled the streets, but soldiers who were truly good at assassination. They were so powerful that they wouldn't even have the strength to retaliate. Vivian's expression was filled with despair, and her voice was trembling. If I stay, you guys can leave first. After they capture me, they won't care about you anymore. With a thought from Luff, a ray of light flashed past, directly cutting off the maid's neck. At the same time, he also obtained her memory data. After Luff quickly finished reading through it, he casually said, it's no use. Once she makes a move, she will kill us all. She has placed spies in all the noble residences, so it's impossible for them to be on the surface. If anyone survives, they will be witnesses, so it's impossible for her to leave any witnesses behind. Your servants are not reliable anymore. Listen to my plans. Don't take anything. Let the servants draw attention from the back. We'll go around and walk in front. That way, we might have a chance of survival. Just call a few reliable people over and forget about the rest. After saying that, he turned around and walked towards the carriage. Lorca and Vivian looked at Luff's back and exchanged a glance. After calming down their panic, they walked towards their own carriages. They were originally panicking, but because of Luff's words, they had actually calmed down quite a bit. Luff returned to the carriage. As he placed the books and other things into the runic space, he said to Claire, there might be a battle later. There might be some danger. Are you afraid? I'm afraid. But I won't leave, young master. Claire said seriously. Let's go. Luff smiled as he stroked her hair and pulled her down from the carriage. Luff was not afraid. Instead, he was a little excited. This was his home ground. To others, this place was like a maze. However, to the structure of a modern city, no one in this world was more familiar than him. In addition, his soul could sense a distance of 3,000 meters. In addition, the night sky was dark. This was the most suitable natural battlefield for him. So many runes had been condensed. The Simon Empire could not let go at all, and he could finally use them without any scruples today. Luff was so excited that his body was trembling slightly. A few people at the front of the convoy walked over. There were only 7 or 8 people. They were all people whom he had met at the Dawn Inn. Young Master Knight, what happened? Rexton came over and quickly asked. When Lorca had called him, he knew that things were not that simple. Tell me on the way. As Luff walked, he explained the matter. This is how it is. You can choose to stay here. Maybe you will be fine or maybe you will die. You can also come with me. Whether you will live or die is unknown. How do you choose to make a decision? Luff explained the situation to them. Then, he looked at them indifferently. They were all a little flustered. One of them said softly, I believe that the Queen will not kill people casually. This matter was caused by Vivian. Why do you want us to bear the responsibility together? I won't go with you. I'm sorry. Vivian, we have never offended you. Do you want to give everyone an explanation for this matter? Do you really have the heart to see everyone die with you? This matter was caused by you. You should bear the responsibility. We are all innocent. Vivian, you should stay here with us and listen to the Queen's orders. At the true moment of life and death, everyone revealed temperaments that they had never revealed before. Vivian's heart was very sad. She wanted them to live together, but they wanted her to die. Lorca shouted angrily, is this what you call human behavior? You're asking Vivian to die. Even if she really withstood all the responsibility, do you think we have a chance to live? You guys really disappoint me. I'm telling the truth. The man who had spoken earlier retorted loudly, at this time, it's either her or us. One death is better than everyone else's death. If she dies, we still have a chance to live. If she doesn't die, all of us will die with her. Do you understand? Luff watched coldly from the side. All of this was within his expectations. As expected, this group of nobles was still selfish. After a while, he opened his mouth. Interesting. Luff looked at them and said casually, I've investigated. Among your slaves, there are at least 3 people who are sending messages. It seems that each of your families has been infiltrated by royal spies. You should be very clear that once this kind of thing is exposed, everyone will suffer. The possibility of all of them being silenced is very high. However, you are still holding on to the idea of what if. You are placing your hopes of surviving on the mercy of others. For this, you are willing to push your friends out to die. Luff began to sneer.